Hi, welcome back to another episode of Coldstream Rod Shop. I'm Derek Fraser. In last week's video, we almost got the 35 pickup bed finished. There was two things left we had to do, but we ran out of time. One of them was to put the tailgate back on. A little hiccup with it. Two of the hinges move quite easily, and then the last one, there's something wrong with it, whether it's bent or what. We have to solve that problem to put it back. And then also there was a small piece of sheet metal we had to make up for the back of the tailgate that was missing. We didn't have any stock on hand to finish it, so we'll wrap those two things up. Also last week, the Brenda's 32 Roadster body came back from Jeff York's restoration. They did a wonderful job painting it. We'll insert a clip of it coming back. It's not quite ready to go back on a chassis because we still need the engine and the transmission, and there's a few other things like gas lines and whatnot that we have to run before we can put that back on a chassis. So we're kind of in a holding pattern there. And then for the Camera Ladies Roadster, I ordered up some back brake parts that have to come in order for me to run the back brake lines. So if they come in, we can get into that. The other thing I can do is actually pull the engine transmission out because the transmission has to go out and get rebuilt. And then there's a couple other housekeeping things that we may get into if we run out of stuff to do, but I'll find something to do this week, so follow along. So here's the last bit that we have to do on the 35 pickup bed. As I said, there was a missing sheet metal piece that went along the back of the tailgate. We also had to modify one of the tailgate hinges. There was a lot of interference here. I'm not sure still whether or not it was the tailgate, but the simplest thing to do was actually just to relieve the metal here. And then everything just opens and closes just fine here. So we're good. That was a relatively simple fix. This particular rod, I think the owner said he's got a stainless steel one. He's going to replace it when he gets it home. But we made this piece of 18 gauge sheet metal here, basically just to cover the ends of the boards. It doesn't quite go up far enough for the bolt to go through and hold it. But if I pull this out here, I'll show you. Hopefully it won't fall. But we had to notch it. Now there'll be a lot of pressure from these strips holding it down, but just to be sure, what we decided to do after we spoke with the owner was we would just put a couple countersunk holes here. So I'll put 2 wood screws on either end. That's just going to hold it from sliding this way. And then the pressure of the steel strips will hold it in place. I'm not sure exactly what they did or the conversion kits have, but this is a nice, neat way of cleaning this up. The sheet metal goes over the edge here. So anyways, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to not trip over the jack that I keep backing into here. I'm going to take that strip out. I'm going to clean it off. We're going to put a couple coats of black paint onto it, and then we'll reinstall it along with the chains that go along the side of the tailgate here. So there's the finished tailgate installation on the 35 Ford pickup bed. We've got the sheet metal cover here in place, just basically a screw on each side to keep it from moving forward and back. And then now that the carriage bolts are tightened down, we've got friction there to hold it in place, but it kind of finishes the edge off. And then got the tailgate and the chains in place, so the tailgate will now come up, and then it latches with the this hook here. Basically comes around like this. And then hook like that. Same thing on the opposite side. Everything all fits now. The only thing that's missing, we need to get some like a hose or something to go around the chain. Otherwise the chain is going to go bang like this and of course chip the back of the bed. And there I am kicking the jack again, but Anyway, we've done everything we were asked to do on the pickup bed. A couple more, like I said, a few detail things will be taken care of when it goes back to the owner. He's going to replace that bar across the bottom with the stainless steel one. And then, of course, like I said, we really need to put some hose or something around the chain so that it doesn't chip all the paint. But it's pretty much ready to go here. Not sure what else we're going to do. We did a 35 Ford chassis for the owner, which I believe is going on this project. The bed is going to go back there. Conceivably, he's got more to do for us. Well, he's going to let us know. But we're going to go on to something else. Lots to do here in the shop. Well, today I decided to stop and, I guess, reorganize a few things. Not that I have a whole lot of time to do that, but a few things are starting to bug me a little bit in the shop where we're sticking stuff. One of them was I was always having like bits and pieces of metal laying on the floor or whatever. So I went in the wood shop and just grabbed up a sheet of plywood and a couple pieces of rough lumber and basically made something to stand a few things up so they're not falling over as much. Maybe could have made it bigger, made it wider, but for now, at least I've got some of this stuff leaning up and in an area where I can actually sort it out and see what I've got. I still have the cardboard boxes full of bits and pieces here, so maybe that's something for another day. We'll organize that a little better. Don't want to throw this stuff out because I'm always going through it and digging for something when we're making stuff. The other thing was the planishing hammer was basically screwed onto my working welding table. And don't use it a whole lot, but really it was in my way on the welding table more than anything else. So decided to make a little stand for that. I didn't go through doing it. There's lots of videos on YouTube on people how to make them, but essentially I just had a piece of 2x2 square tubing, made a couple angle pieces. I mean, if anybody's interested, I can give you the measurements for it, but decided to get my working level right about here. When it was over on that table, it was actually sitting about 6 inches too high for me. I'm quite tall, but I mean, you want to get your basically in a position so that you're kind of working with your hands in front of you so you can see. You don't want to too high up and you don't want to be stooched over. So right now, kind of happy with that. Initially, I had that square piece across the front, thinking from an engineering point of view it would be more stable. But what that doesn't do is if you put that bar across the front, then it doesn't leave you room for the little foot actuator. So turned it around and actually it's very stable here. If you use a tripod design, it's kind of self-leveling versus, if you've got 4 feet, if you move it around your concrete floor, it's going to wobble a little bit, but with 3 feet onto it, it's very stable. So do have to make a little adjustment here because when I received this was damaged. So I'm going to have to put in a little new spring clip here so that this piece doesn't rotate on me. But anyway, that's probably something for another day, but we've accomplished that task. We've now got it on its own stand. Next up on the 32 Fords, what we're going to do, there's all kinds of little things to do, but one thing I realized was that both of these cars are going to have headlight stands put on. And coincidentally, we both bought the same stands. Now, we got them from Speedway. They're stainless steel headlight stands, and essentially they are going to go approximately right there. So it's going to be sitting just in front of the radiator. Complication on Brenda's Roadster is it's painted, so we don't have access to the bolts here. So what the plan is on this one is to drill the holes and then basically weld in some bungs here and hopefully not transfer too much heat into the painted area. Now there's gaskets that go on it somewhere's here, yeah. So we're going to have a little bit more room. So might use the TIG welder to TIG the bungs in, but I'll show you what I'm doing. And then over on the Camera Lady's Roadster, it's going to be a little easier for us because the intention here is actually to cut back the boxing plate and leave it exposed. I know that on some cars you box them all the way to the end. They like the nice clean look, but we're looking for a more traditional, old school Roadster, something that isn't finished as much. So again, going to be locating them in approximately the same place. I'll show you the headlights that we're going to be using for it, because I want to make sure that when I put this in, the headlight and stuff is far enough away from the radiator shell and whatnot. But I'm going to cut this boxing plate away here and then drill holes to put that in place. So follow along, and we're going to get some headlight brackets welded to both of the 32 Ford chassis. I decided to start working on the Camera Ladies Roadster first to put the headlight brackets on. One reason was I wanted to make sure that the headlights were positioned the right direction here relative to the radiator shell. If I had to drill them or re-drill them, I could easily do that with the metal unpainted frame. And then once we got the right position of the headlights, then we're going to start drilling and putting bungs in for the painted frame. So right now, what I've done, I've cut the boxing plates out like I talked about and cleaned up the inside of the front frame horns and that to kind of make them more look like stock. And then basically put these supports in the frame as far back as we could so that I could still access the bolt where the front cross member is. So you can see the front cross member here goes across. You need enough room to get in and tighten the bolt up. So basically put them as back as far as I could, but also I wanted to make sure I had enough clearance between that and the radiator cell. Now the radiator cell, I kind of put it a little further forward to make sure that we've got some decent clearance. Those particular headlights are actually for Brenda's car. I'm going to go get the Camera Lady's her headlights over in the other garage here, and we're going to put those on. But while I was doing this, I just kind of wanted to do the sanity check of where the headlights are. I think hers are the same diameter. They're just a different style. These particular headlights have got an LED turn signal inside of the bucket, and then the Camera Ladies has actually got a little more traditional one where you've got the blinker that's on the top of the headlight bucket. So anyways, I'm kind of happy with it so far. I'm going to carry on. Like I said, I'll go get those headlight buckets and we'll try them on. And then what we'll do next is we'll start putting them on Brenda's Roadster chassis. I mounted the Camera Ladies Roadster headlights on and compared them to Brenda's Roadster headlights. And although Brenda's Roadster headlights look good where they are, the headlights that we bought for the Camera Ladies Roadster are a little bit bigger and don't have the clearance between the headlight bucket and the grill shell. The other thing that we're talking about doing, we haven't decided yet, is actually to put a bar from here over to there. So the bar would actually have to come out far enough to clear where the grill shell is. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to go get the other grill shell, and then I'm going to have to try and position with the grill shell with the grill into it, and then actually reposition these further forward. Now, a rough calculation I made so far off of the 32 pickup was that bracket actually has to come forward a total of 3 inches. Because if I look at where an original 32 Ford Roadster headlight bucket is relative to this post here, it sits about 3 inches further forward. So that's going to be my starting point. I'm going to get a grill and a grill shell, tape it in place here to get the clearances, and then I'm going to reposition that 3 inches forward, and then we'll see if I have clearance to put a stainless steel rod across. Because ultimately, like what I'd like to do, and they did a lot, was they would cut down an original 32 Ford Roadster headlight bar, and then you would weld it to some of these posts, and then you'd have the bar going across here, and you'd sit the little V8 symbol down in the center. That's the look we're going to go after, and that's what we're trying to do here. So let's see if I can get the post further forward. I'll get a piece of mild steel and bend it up and see if I can clear it. And if I do, then I'll go and I'll buy a piece of stainless, and I'll try and put, oh, sorry about my finger flash in there. we'll try and get the finger, or the bar, to go from one side to the other and be in front of the grill shell. So there's the look we're trying to go for on the Camera Ladies Roadster. I moved the headlight mounts forward at, I think it was 2 1/8 inch it worked out to be. What I used was the one hole, the forward hole from where it was previously located. I moved it forward to that and drilled a new hole, so that way I only needed to weld up one hole behind it. And then what I did, I grabbed a piece of round bar, and since I don't have any stainless, I basically took that over onto the 32 Ford pickup and I bent it to the same radius as what the original headlight bar is, just to simulate clearances and where I want to be. I'm not going to be able to do that this episode because I don't have time and I don't have any stainless steel. Ultimately, what I want to do is I want that bar across there, and then we'll put the little V8 symbol here in the center. So either I'm going to go buy some stainless steel rod and bend it, or I'm going to try and locate maybe a Model A front headlight bar or something that I could cut up, something that's damaged or whatever, and then weld that between the two posts. Some of you guys who have followed Iron Trap, I mean, he did the same thing, I think, on one of his Roadsters. I'm not 100% sure. I saw this somewheres. I also picked up on... There's a 32 Ford Roadster in one of the Rotters journals. I forget which episode it is, but they've done it too. So it's a traditional thing to do, to kind of put the pedestals on the side and the bar across and the V8 symbol on the bar. But right now we've got about an inch clearance between that and the front grille. So we're sitting good on this one. So I think the look we've got, I'm trying to make sure I can show you here. That's the kind of look we want for the front of the Camera Ladies Roadster, so I'm happy with that now. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to Brenda's Roadster, and since the car is going to sit a little differently, they may actually put the rod across the center. I think the owners of this car might want that as well. So what I'm going to do is I will actually mount the little pedestals in the same position on Brenda's Roadster here, but what I've got to do is I've got to drill a hole and then weld a bung in without messing the paint up too much. Like I said, most likely I'm going to have to use the TIG welder because it doesn't generate as much heat when I weld the bungs in, but at least now we know where to drill the holes. So going to do that next and get the headlights in and show you that. Here we are. I had to go get the camera lady to help me with the video here. I have the headlight stanchions or headlight posts, whatever you might want to call them, in place now. And as simple as it is, what I did, I just drilled a hole where these were, then drilled the hole big enough for a nut, and then I used the welder and I welded a nut in place and then ground it smooth. So these now can bolt in from the top. On the Camera Ladies Roadster, we're using carriage bolts, so we can use a nut from the bottom, but because these plates are still boxed, over here we had to screw in from the top, so we used the bolt. So once I welded it in place, basically just chased the bolt hole with a tap to clean it out and then ground it smooth. So I'm happy with those, and like I said, I moved these forward just in case the owner of Brenda's Roadster wants us to put a bar across the front between the two headlights. I think it's kind of cool. I think it's kind of nostalgic. You guys tell me what you think. Certainly there's lots of cars out there without the bar in front of it. And then just for sanity's sake, there is a grill shell, not the grill shell. So it's going to mount right about there. So we've got lots of clearance between the grill shell and the headlights. Nothing's crowding too much, and this grill shell is going to sit the same place as that one, so I know that if we put a bar across here, we're still going to clear it. But that's it for these bars. I'm going to wait to hear from the owner to see what we do to go further with it, and then I'm going to work on some more stuff before the end of the video. So next up on the Camera Ladies Roadster, one of the things we want to do is start stripping everything off of the frame, get the engine and transmission out, get the transmission out to get it rebuilt. That's one of the reasons why I finished all the mufflers and everything else. But one of the last things I needed to do, as I mentioned, was run where the rear brake lines are going to go. Now, this is a 9-inch Ford rear end out of an F-150. It originally had a vent tube on the top of the tube where the leaf spring was, or close to where the leaf spring was. I've got another one over there. It's just the vent tube is close to the top there. But when I narrowed this rear end, I cut a section out and I welded the hole up, and I wanted to relocate the vent tube. So I did that, and it's basically, you had to drill and tap a 7/16 20 threaded hole into the tube, and I've got that in place now, and I've got a new vent tube there in place, and I've got my flex line. So what we're going to do, I'm going to make this flex line so that I'm going to, once it's tightened down there, I'll use like a copper washer underneath, like a compression washer to hold it in place. And then the brake lines will come out from the left and the right of it because it's a T. Now down here, it's kind of hard to show. I need to actually make a little bracket down there and weld it to the side of the frame. And that is where the brake line is going to come into it. Now, you can buy them. We've used them before. If you look underneath there, they came right there with Brenda's Roadster. Now, I don't have any, so what we're going to do is I'm going to make some. It's a pretty simple, straightforward thing to do. It's just a little bit of flat plate. Drill a couple holes big enough. Now, last night we were sitting around watching a YouTube video, and there's a gentleman. He did an extremely well presented video, very professional, very well spoken, but the whole video for like 45 minutes was one of the secrets of using a drill press. And at the end of the day, basically the punchline was, get a vise. So I'm going to save you the 40 minutes of watching that video and recommend to you that if you don't have a vise for your drill press, it is a pretty sweet thing. You can pick those up at Harbor Freight or Princess Auto for 60, 70 bucks. And it is a finger saver, a hand saver, whatever you want to call it. Basically clamp it into the vise. The weight of it, you don't even have to clamp it down most of the time. The weight of it is enough so that it will prevent it from torquing around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make these finish making these brackets up. I'm going to make 3 of them. 1 for the rear flex hose and 2 for the two front flex hoses. I'm going to be welding them to the frame. So I'm going to drill those holes, and then I'll basically file out the holes to make it like a hex nut so it'll slip in there, because the ends of the flex lines are typically like they're a flex or a hex shape, as you can see right there. So, and then use a clip to hold it in place. So kind of finish making these up. We'll get that one welded in the back, and then hopefully we'll be in a position to start stripping that frame. Well, we got the bracket welded in place here. I'm happy with where it is. We've got plenty of clearance. That flex hose will never make contact with the exhaust. And also we've shortened the brake lines up. As far as running the brake lines from the T across to the other side of the brake drums, can do that later on once it's all painted and everything. I will have to make a clip to weld on the back of the housing, because the Ford 9-inches typically have that to hold the brake lines in place, but that's just like a little piece of metal to kind of hold it in place. So I'll do that when I take it apart. As far as running the rest of the brake lines right now, I think what I'm going to do is we're going to strip the chassis, put the brake lines in, or make up some of the brake lines for it. I also have to weld, I made up 3 of these little brackets, 1 for the flex line in the back, 2 from the front. We'll get those in place, but basically we run out of time to do the video this week, so I'll get that done off camera. And then, you know, basically this week it was a little bit of work on the back end, but mostly messing around, getting the headlights installed, getting them mounted, and kind of being happy with where everything is. Anyway, that's it for this week. Please like, share, tag, and subscribe. Send me your comments, and come on back and see what we're doing next week.